start off introduction with each one.
Ladies first.
Who wants to go first?
Why don't you go first, Nicole?
All right, thanks. My name is Nicole Binkley, graduate of the MPA program from 11. I work for TRAC, the Transition Resource Action Center. I'm the CEO there. I've been there for a little bit over a year. And TRAC really focuses on youth that are aging out of foster care and homeless youth that are disconnected. And we provide them with resources for education, employment, housing for their journey to adulthood. Allison, I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Can everyone hear me okay?
Thanks. We can hear you great.
Great. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Allison Quisenberry. I am the annual fund manager over at MetroCrest Services. And so I've been there for 2 months, and it's been a great start so far. So our mission at MetroCrest Services is to empower individuals to achieve self-sufficiency and foster independence. And so we have a variety of different programs that we offer the community. We have an on-site food pantry. We do workforce development. We do provide some rental assistance. We do financial coaching, a variety of different things. So we're just a large social service agency, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, honestly.
I'll go ahead and go next. Can everyone hear me?
Awesome. We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, cool. I'm Faustina Friedman. I'm the development associate at Our Daily Bread. Our Daily Bread is a homelessness care center. Our mission is to nourish, shelter, and care for the homeless and at risk in our community while offering opportunities for a new start. We offer shelter services, which is your basic needs that you can think of: clothing, meals, hygiene products, mail service, as well as a housing focused program. Everyone who has a bed here is in that program, and they have a case manager and that has an individualized housing case plan for them. And the ultimate goal is for everyone in that program to become housed. And then we also offer inclement weather shelter during nights that are really hot or really cold, or severe storms.
Awesome. And then Mr. Smith.
I'm Pat Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of ServDen. ServDen's been in existence about 14 years, and our main mission is to partner with nonprofits and communities to help them better serve people in need. We do that by providing affordable real estate here at ServDen Center. And then we also consult with communities to help them develop similar centers. And then we also provide education and areas of operations and leadership through a couple of different programs.
Great. Well, now that we have all these introductions out the way, let's just move on to a really simple starting question that I feel would be great for discussion. So to start off, I'd like to know from each one just what personal experiences or moments led you into nonprofit work, and how have those experiences shaped the way that you lead today?
Do we just want to go in the same kind of round robin? So I'll start us off.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect.
I actually started my career at MetroCrest Services, where Allison is now. But I was getting my master's degree and was actually working for a municipality, and really figured out that I didn't love government. It moved much slower than I wanted. And nonprofit allows a little bit more flexibility. And so I would say that's kind of the pivotal point of my career, just realizing that I didn't want to work in government because that is what I thought that I had wanted to do. And shifting gears to nonprofit allowed me to have more flexibility. I got to do more things. And it allowed me I think it allowed me to do different things, whereas I wasn't just in one department. I've been able to do everything. I started out at MetroCrest as the pantry manager, and then I did development, and then I was COO. Then I went to Austin Street Center, which is a downtown shelter with 450 bed shelter in downtown Dallas. I ran that for 2 years, as well as doing the inclement weather shelter there. So I've been able to do a lot of different things working with municipalities. So I still feel like that I have that public entity kind of that I like, especially here at TRAC. I know one of the questions we're going to talk about is public and private relationships, but I still get that public and private opportunity. But there's a lot more flexibility and less red tape in nonprofits than in municipality governments. And so it allowed me to go at a faster pace, decision-making wise and just policy wise and things like that. So that was kind of the decision-making of why I ended up changing my focus from local government to nonprofit as I was getting my master's degree.
So
Awesome. Well, for me specifically, when I was younger, I knew, and when I was an undergrad, I wanted to go into government work. I essentially wanted to work at the federal level, and that was my goal. And then pretty soon I realized that the nonprofit space was going to be much more suitable for where I want to go with my career. And specifically, I feel like I wanted to enact change in my community at a much quicker pace. But also I wanted to be hands-on. I felt like if I worked for a government, I wasn't going to be able to be client-facing or interacting with people as much as I would have liked. And so that's why I decided to go into the nonprofit space. I started out my career, I graduated from UNT with my bachelor's about 2021. And so immediately after that, I worked for PAT for 4 years. So I worked at Serve Denton, which was an amazing experience. I did development there, but I also got to do a fun little activity. And I know we're going to talk about it later, but I said an activity, but it was actually a career. I did public-private partnerships, essentially, where I partnered with municipalities and helped them build their own model based off of Serve Denton. And so I got to do that for a while, and that was great. And so now I'm working in development, like I said, for a social service agency. So I feel like I've had a good, well-rounded experience in the nonprofit space, but eventually my goal is to be a nonprofit CEO. And so I want to get experience in all aspects of nonprofit work. But I think working for a social service agency has really shown to me that the nonprofit work that is done in our communities is essential. And it's so necessary for the clients that we serve and those in need. And I just love the work that we do.
great to hear, honestly. Ms. Friedman, if you can go on.
Yeah, so I think I kind of always knew I wanted to get into a career that would help other people. And whenever I was younger, I was always volunteering and being involved in my community. And actually, when I was 15, right, in going into high school, I created my own nonprofit. It was to raise funds and awareness for childhood cancer research. I had a friend who unfortunately passed away when I was a freshman in high school from childhood cancer, and that became my mission, was to do something about it. So I ran that nonprofit for about 7 years. So I did the full life cycle of a nonprofit from start to close. Myself and my best friend, we couldn't keep it running by ourselves. But whenever I was finishing up high school and looking into colleges, I saw that UNT had an undergrad nonprofit leadership program. And I didn't even know nonprofits was an actual career. I thought it was just a bunch of volunteers doing something to help their community. I didn't know it could be something that could be your job and your life passion. So that's what I studied. I went into the MPA program, also going off the nonprofit branch as well. When I was in the master's program, I had to do an internship. And so when I came to Denton, I was looking for areas to volunteer. I was volunteering at Our Daily Bread, and when I needed to do an internship, I asked them if I could intern, and I've been here since for almost 3 years in January. And so, yeah, that's how I got into it. I love what we do. As Allison said, the hands-on experience and actually being able to see the people that our mission is serving means a lot to me.
Sounds great. And to finish it off, Pat, would you like to add more?
Yeah, so my path to the nonprofit world is very different. I'm retired. I was spent 28 years in the Air Force, retired as a colonel in 2008, went in the private sector as a consultant. Did that for a couple of years. While I was doing that, my dad passed away. And I learned a lot about my dad after he passed. He had struggled as a young man and had been homeless for quite a while. And eventually my uncle helped him get back on help my dad get on his feet and get a job. And he met mom, and then I came along, and fast forward, he ended up retiring from Xerox in 1980 and opened a very popular restaurant on campus, or right off campus on Fry Street, called Jim's Diner, and served a lot of people at the front door, but served also a lot of people at the back door. And I didn't know that. I was off doing my Air Force career. And when he passed away in 2009, we I wrote the obituary, and long story made short, that ended up being a page-and-a-half article in the Denton Record Chronicle, and people from across the country came to his memorial service. And it was literally a Veterans Day, 2009. And I was struck by why people came to say goodbye to Dad. And I realized that he had impacted a lot of people's lives in a very positive way. And they all said, your dad saved my life, or your dad was the best boss I ever had. And I was kind of living for myself, and just focusing on material wealth. And so I made a decision. I was convicted about that. And I ultimately walked away from a very lucrative job and went into ministry at Denton Bible. And out of that came the idea for Serve Denton. And so I took over Serve Denton as the CEO. I was the executive director for several years, and then we hired Carly Cuban, and she did that for a couple of years. And then she wanted to step away and focus on her family. So I stepped in full time at that time to be the CEO, and been here ever since. So.
Well, thank y'all each for a great starting question. Honestly, that was really insightful. I guess to continue on just about this early career path that I've noticed, what is one lesson I would say that you learned early in your career that continues to guide your work today?
I mean, I know I'm supposed to go first, but I don't know if I have an answer right off the bat.
I do.
No, that's perfect.
I have to think about it. You go, Pat, if
I'll
you've
go
got an
first.
answer.
So I use this in leadership training. I always ask a question of, name someone who was very influential in your life as a leader, and what did they do? And my answer is always the same. So when I was a second lieutenant in the Air Force, long story made short, I was in charge of getting our unit ready for a big inspection, and we had a lot of challenges. And I was 23 years old, 400-person organization, and we've got a really bad rating in the inspection. And I thought, I was going to get fired for it. And so I went to the colonel's office at the time, Colonel Dick Thompson, and I knocked on his door after this big wing presentation. And I said, well, sir, I guess you're going to fire me. And he turns to me and goes, Pat, why would I fire you? You've made all the mistakes. Now just go fix it. Well, 2 years later, through a lot of hard work, the inspection came back again, and we got an excellent, almost got an outstanding. And I found myself on a plane 3 weeks later, flying to Saudi Arabia to manage a $1.5 billion weapons program because of that. And that kind of launched me on my career. But the point is I had a boss who had a high tolerance for failure, and he encouraged me in that sense. And I think I've always tried to stress that, failure is rarely fatal. Crimes are maybe fatal, but not failures. And just being comfortable with making mistakes. I have a saying that says, failure or fail is first attempt in learning. And so learning to make mistakes, and learning from those mistakes, and then getting better. And I think that's an ethos I've tried to communicate and promote throughout the organization.
Perfect.
I can go next.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think for me, like a big lesson that I've learned, I feel like there's a large misconception, and we talked about it a lot in the master's program, or that nonprofits shouldn't operate as businesses. And I disagree with that. I believe that nonprofits are often undermined in their ability to serve people and have a client base. And I feel like personally, nonprofits are just as deserving of good quality space. That's what I've learned at Servden. What I've learned at MetroCrest, clients deserve good space as well, but also deserve dignity in the services that they're receiving. And so, for me, I feel like just a big lesson is that nonprofits, people do not consider nonprofits to be as professional as they are. And I wish that was something that was different in the world, and that people saw nonprofits as profitable and as businesses that could really serve people well. And I wish that wasn't a misconception.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that we run businesses, right? I mean, that is what we do. We run a business. We just have a different mission. We're selling a different product. So mine's going to be it's going to sound really harsh, but as you graduate from your graduate degree and as you start managing people, I think one of the greatest lessons I learned, and I learned this from Allison, your current boss, Tracy, it goes against what Pat just said, but I think if you'll indulge me, you'll understand, is fire quick. I think that if you have someone who's not willing to learn from mistakes, instead of perpetually giving them chance after chance after chance, you've got to let them go, because we are businesses. And while we are compassionate people, you have to go through a process. But I think that is a young manager's mistake, is to think that you can coach people out of continuously making mistakes, and you can't, right? I mean, like, if it is past their capacity to be able to do the job that you need them to do, and you're continuously making workarounds to make it work, then you not being efficient, they're not being efficient, the organization's not being efficient. And it just slows you down. And the more workarounds you have to create, the less focused you can be on your mission. And that just, it makes you sludge through things. And I think, like, I'm kind of I feel like one of my strengths is kind of being a fixer, of being like, well, why are we doing these 5 workarounds? Well, this person doesn't know how to do that. So we have this person do that, and then she sends it back. And I'm like, that just took 20 minutes. And you do that 5 times, and you have no time to actually get your real job done.
Yeah.
And that is well, she's a great person. Yeah, she's a great person, but we also have a mission to do, and we only have so much money to do it. And there is kindness in setting people up for success, and you're not going to be able to do that if you keep them at a job they can't succeed in. So, while yes, I believe that Pat was absolutely learning from his mistakes. So I do agree with that. But if you have somebody that's not learning from their mistakes and can't come up to that capacity, fire quick. Go through the legal process. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, don't think it's your job as a manager to coach them up, right? Like, there's just some capacities that you're not going to be able to make, and you need to cut the string, move on. I think that whenever I have those conversations with managers, that I'm like, don't you feel a relief? And they're like, I didn't know how bad it was until you cut that string and you get somebody else in that can do the job, of how much stress it drags people down. So fire quick.
Hire, wholeheartedly agree. Hire slow, fire fast.
Hire slow, fire fast.
And
Especially,
Allison,
when it's not a good fit, people.
yeah. And Allison, she was a whopping 23 years old, and she had an employee, and we had to fire her. And you haven't really been a boss until you've had to fire someone. So.
Yep.
And then would you like to add anything, Ms. Friedman?
Yeah, so I would say something that I've definitely learned is networking is so important. It takes a community to serve, and to especially when we're in social service areas, we're all working together to help those in our community. Something that that stuck with me when I started the undergrad program, Dr. Keys at UNT, we were in one of her classes, and she said, look to your left, look to your right. These are going to be the people that you are eventually going to be working with. and she was very right about that. Allison was in a few of my classes in the undergrad program, and I still stay connected with her, and I stay connected with a few other people from my undergrad and of course MPA program. So definitely putting yourself out there to get to know people. And I definitely put myself out there whenever I was looking for an internship. Finding a paid internship in the nonprofit world is really hard. And so I definitely had to learn how to network and advocate for myself. And when I started here as an intern, I was the first nonprofit intern, but I showed that I had the skills through the volunteering and keeping connected. And I said, hey, I really think I can be a great part of this organization. And so really getting to know people. And I definitely encourage you to go to the MPA conferences, the luncheons, getting to know people and networking, and get to know people in local government and in nonprofit working together.
Honestly. And then just because I did hear Pat and Ms. Bingley touch more base on this, as long as y'all as well too, I am very curious. How do you sustain motivation when work becomes just emotionally or financially challenging in the nonprofit sector world?
Well, for me, it's because of my dad. This is my motivation every day. That's not me, that's dad. It sits over me. So, I mean, I actually probably do this. I have done this job for free in the past. And so, but I think in the larger and more from your context is always be, think about how you can be successful and what do wins look like. I'll tell you, we've had a really tough year. I had to lay off over half the staff because we lost over $500,000 in revenue in the spring. And that was a really hard decision. But good leaders run towards hard decisions. They make hard decisions. And since then, we've raised almost $150,000 that I didn't expect to raise in May, but we've raised in that time. And those are wins. And one of the things I've tried to always do, and is every staff meeting, we always start off with roses, thorns, and buds. Roses are wins, thorns are pain points, and buds are things we're hopeful for. And celebrate success. I don't think nonprofits do that enough. I think they tend to beat themselves up a lot. And if you want to create a winning culture, celebrate the little wins. Little wins become medium-sized wins, and medium-sized wins become big wins. And don't be bashful about celebrating one another's success and saying thank you and congratulating one another on a good event or just helping someone and doing a great job helping that person.
And my motivation really comes from direct interaction with the clients. I mean, I get to walk out to our lobby and meet the youth that we're serving. And a lot of, I think what's been different about working in direct care with the homeless population is that there is a lot of trauma. Case management looks a lot different. It truly is case management versus transactional. And like you're in the trenches with these youth and with these adults. And I think seeing their little wins, right? Like it is little bitty wins that they get. Seeing those wins, and exactly what Pat said is those little wins roll up into big wins, and they just continue to get bigger. And seeing those is what motivates me, being able to see our youth and our adults move the needle and keep jobs and feel connected. Like I feel a lot of who we serve feel marginalized and feel like they're in this journey by themselves. And so giving them a community and just seeing them is really important to me. And I can see that whenever I go and walk out into the building. I also want to say that I love Pat's leaders go towards hard decisions. Like, look at me coming to the lunch and learning something. That is absolutely true. And if you don't make hard decisions, hard decisions close nonprofits, right? And so it is very common for leaders not to make those hard decisions because it sucks. I mean, it is not fun to lay people off or cut funding. But in the economy, in the environment that we're in right now, keeping the core nonprofit alive and healthy is much more important right now. And so anyways, I think that's a great lesson for us all to learn that I told somebody like yesterday, I've only been a CEO for 10 months. Being CEO is not what it's cracked up to be. It is not as fun as people think that it is.
It's very lonely.
It is very lonely up there making those decisions. You are granted, I've been the bad guy for a very long time. I'm used to being the COO who puts the hammer down, but being the ultimate decision maker is good in some ways and is really hard in others. And it is really hard if you're not willing to make it and to say, I own this. It sucks, but I'm going to own it. So I wrote it down. I'm going to put it on my wall, Pat.
Right.
Yeah. I think for me, what I feel like when the going gets tough and tough decisions have to be made, it's the people that you're working with and the people that your organization hired what keeps me going, right? And so I went from a staff at Serve Denton of about, we had 10, 13 people, Pat, and then now I'm working with a staff of 50, 60. It was a big transition. But for me, when I was at Serve Denton and even at MetroCrest, when we're experiencing tough times or difficult decisions are being made, working with passionate people that are putting the organization's mission first and foremost, I think is what really motivates me to stay. It's what motivates me to keep going and to keep serving the clients that we are, especially at MetroCrest. Right now, with SNAP having been cut, that has caused a lot of issues and a lot of clients are in need right now. And so they're losing motivation because we're moving at such a rapid pace to serve everyone that we possibly can. It gets pretty difficult. And so I think having a good staff and hiring right completely changes how your organization moves forward into the future and how they can be resilient after hard times.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Of course, here at Artillery Bread, whenever I walk in through the front doors, I'm also seeing exactly who we're serving. And so that motivates me. The staff, of course, Allison, same here. We're feeling the impact of SNAP benefits being closed right now. But I would also say from something that's really unique to nonprofits is also our volunteers and our donors. Also seeing how they keep wanting to come in and they keep wanting to support us. That lets sometimes whenever we feel like, oh, maybe we didn't make the right decision or I'm not having a good day. And then our volunteers like, y'all are doing a really good job. Or a donor says, hey, I want to give you like $5,000 because your mission means a lot to me. And I want you all to keep going. So that's something that's super unique to nonprofits is also that support from the volunteers and the donors and knowing that, okay, we are doing a great job and other people have our backs.
Great. Thank y'all for sharing that. To move more into just the mission alignments of more the nonprofits y'all are serving to get less of the personal journey, I am very interested to know, how do you ensure that the programs that are inside y'all's nonprofits reflect the actual needs of the community rather than what funders or organizations assume the needs to be?
Cool.
Yep, I am. I'll talk to that just a little bit, just because TRAC actually changed their mission over the last couple of years. So we were part of City Square, and we focused just on youth aging out of foster care. But as they went under, they asked us to spin off. So we created our own 501c3, and we changed our mission to be able to focus not just on youth aging out of foster care, but also youth that are experiencing homelessness, because we saw that coming through our front door. So we've got an office in downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth. And so we are really kind of at the intersection of where a majority of homeless individuals live. And so they were literally walking in our door, and we were really having to say, that's not our mission. We can't help you. And so we saw that need. I say our board saw that need and changed the mission to be able to reflect us being able to help all the youth. We did keep it pretty compact. We kept with our 18 to 24 age range. We just essentially expanded it to be able to serve opportunity youth that are still disconnected, still need services, but aren't necessarily in the foster care system. So, and now we're pretty, I would say that, our mission is very, we're not going to change it. We're staying with that. I think one of the things that's interesting as, you look at public funding is youth aging out of foster care is a pretty bipartisan issue. So there's a lot of funding going to that right now. And you see a lot of organizations shifting to serve that population to get the funding. And so it's kind of interesting that we're like, no, like we're the OGs. We've been doing this for like 20 some years. We understand that everybody else is getting cut. We understand that, but like, we've been doing this for 20 years. Don't try to take our funding. But we're focused on those youth serving.
Great.
Yeah, so we do have a partnership with the city of Denton, and when we heard that, or when we saw that the PIT count showed that homelessness in Denton County increased 33% from 2024, and then just from 2023 to 2024 it was 20%. So we're seeing this gradual increase. We knew that we needed to figure out something. We're of course are still sticking to our mission, but one of our new programs is our housing focused program. So we used to have, it was split for emergency and transitional shelter. And in the transitional shelter, it served only about 56 people. But now the wings are split men and women, and everyone who has a bed here has an individual case manager as well. And 120 people now in that housing focus program. And the reason for the switch, although as we were mentioning, it was a hard decision, of course, for our executive director to make, because emergency shelters are also a need for those who are in really bad situations, who are in that survival mode. But we were seeing that when we were in that model and we only had a small transitional shelter, with the emergency shelter and the transitional shelter not being as much as intensive care as it needed to be, people were coming in and out of our doors every other day. And so if someone didn't get a bed for the week and maybe the case managers didn't see them for 3 days, now they've lost all of their personal identification again. And now the case manager, we're back 5 steps, and now we have to try and get you back to where you were. And then, oh no, you don't have a bed again. So now everyone who's in the program has a bed, and they are going to be here until they graduate from the program. Just so there's not this back and forth of, okay, I didn't get a bed for the night, now I'm back, and again, I lost my identification, now I have to start over. And there's other situations, it's not just the IDs and everything like that, but maybe something else happens and now we're back to square one. So that was a difficult decision that we had to make. But fortunately, we have been seeing really great progress. And with September and October, we've only had this program for about 2 months. It started September 1st, but in September and October, we housed an average of 25 people. And that is the most that we've ever housed before. With the model that we were serving at, we weren't housing that many people that quickly. And our case managers, they're working with people, teaching them how to budget. They're helping them find the job or income if it's needing to get Social Security, whatever income source. And then it's also teaching them those life skills and knowing that where we encourage our guests to get on SNAP and learn about all the resources and the benefits that are out there so that they can continue to pay their rent and everything like that. So we're definitely, of course, feeling that impact of SNAP, but we're seeing great progress with this, and we are going quickly through our wait list for this program as well, reuniting our guests with family. So that was something whenever we knew we needed to see what was going to be the homeless population in Denton, and we knew we needed to get people housed or back with family, and back to being independent and stable.
Well, thank you for sharing, honestly.
Allison,
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, thanks. To talk a little bit about MetroCrest, and Nicole, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. During COVID, we were one of the agencies that were given money to write rent checks during the time when COVID was happening and evictions were happening quite frequently. And so about a year and a half ago, our CEO, Tracy, had an epiphany, and he said, I don't know, he might have had this epiphany years ago and didn't think about it, but what we wanted to transition away from just being the person that wrote the checks all the time to being the person that provides more long-term case management and getting to the root cause of what's going on in someone's life. Because we know in social services that if someone's experiencing one need, they're experiencing multiple needs. So they might be coming in for rental assistance, and you sit there and you try to connect them to an agency or help them get rental assistance, but they don't have food at home. And on top of that, they might have the money, but they don't know how to budget correctly. They don't know how to spend it. And so we started and embarked on this new venture. It's called My Path. And so it's basically changing the way that we provide case management to individuals in our facility, and figuring out what we can do to help them not be a client again, help them graduate from this program, and figure out how we can help them be self-sufficient and resilient in this community. And so that's kind of how we've adapted our programs. We launched that program next year, and so we're moving at a very, very fast pace. And so, you'll learn more about that as we share it. We're kickstarting the fundraising, we're hitting the ground running, but that's kind of how we've adapted our programs. And I see it as being very successful, and helping people help them achieve the self-sufficiency that they deserve.
Right.
Yeah, just to make sure I get the question right, it's how do we adjust our programs based on the community input? Is that right? Or
Yes, it's more of like, how do we ensure that the nonprofits programs reflect the actual needs of the community rather than what funders might assume instead would be.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, just my limited experience. Funders are most of the time too distant and are know enough not to do that. Our experience has been, I just look for where there's problems, and often, like, there was no one in the community that said, "Oh, we needed a one-stop shop." Just wasn't. I mean, there was an idea, but honestly, it's when I have a mission presentation I give to everyone who takes a tour, and we give lots of tours, and we always start off with two problems. First problem is how do people find services when it was scattered all over town? And then second problem was, how do we help nonprofits have quality space to operate and thrive in? And everyone knew those were problems, but no one said, "Oh, we need to go fix this." And so my experience is, go look for where there's a problem and then come up with a solution. A new problem that I've seen and that I can tell is a real problem is a lot of organizations lack leadership development programs. A lot of nonprofits, you get into the nonprofit space because you're passionate about something. And one day you wake up and you're in charge, but you haven't had a lot of real hands-on leadership training. And so we've created a program called Leading with Excellence, just to provide leadership training based on the principles of servant leadership. No funder said, "Go do this." What the funder said is, "Man, we love that because we can see that's a problem. But my experience has been look for where there's a problem and then start working on a solution. Now you want to talk to people in the community, but just being out there, being present and listening and observing, and then seeing where you can make a difference is, I think, the key.
Yeah. I think Pat had a really good nugget in there of, whenever y'all graduate and go look for your first job, ask whoever's interviewing you what professional development opportunities there are, right? Like there's a difference in training and professional development, and making sure that they're getting ready for you to be at that next level is important. Making sure that they're investing. It doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, I talk a lot about, and Allison and I can talk about Tracy all day. But Tracy put me in rooms way before I was ready. He put me in finance rooms, and he put me in where I was, choosing insurance vendors and things like that. But he had me in the room so I could learn what questions to ask. So then whenever I did become CEO, I was like, oh, I've been in this room 10 times. I know what questions to ask. I know what's crazy. I know whenever they start throwing out acronyms, what they mean. That doesn't cost anything, right? And so it really is the mentality of the leader to make sure that, that they're doing that. But then also once you become a leader, making sure you're doing that, right? It doesn't hurt to have extra people in the meeting. It just gives them that experience to be able to learn that. So then whenever they get up there, they're not like, what do? I don't know how to choose a health insurance vendor for my 50 employees. It doesn't cost anything. So I think as y'all go and interview, that's a good point to make sure that you're asking, how do you develop your employees and your managers?
Yeah, first responsibility of a leader is to grow leaders.
Yep.
Because you never know. I mean, tomorrow I could be gone, like not coming back for whatever reason. And we put a lot of emphasis on succession planning. Nonprofits typically don't.
Yep.
They just wait till the crisis occurs, and then it's like, oh crap, what do we do now?
Or they do, but it's not really relevant, right? You can put together a document that says, oh yeah, they're next in line. But if you haven't put the time into actually develop that person and to how you make decisions, what decisions do you have to make? I mean, like I said, Tracy put me in these rooms to see what decisions he was having to make. So I knew what I was getting myself into. But leaders like that, I think, it's one thing to be written down on a piece of paper and one thing to actually do it.
No, great. Well, thank y'all for this. And I'm going to keep that in mind for sure, looking for my future job. So thank you, honestly. To move on towards more public sector partnerships, I am very interested in knowing, can each one of y'all share an example of a meaningful collaboration that y'all have had with your nonprofit with a city or county agency by any chance?
I'm going to go first because I'm going to steal Pat's thunder as soon as I can. So one huge thing that when we started this consulting arm of Serve Denton, where we essentially asked we noticed a lot of these cities and a lot of communities were just experiencing such a need. Like, for example, Bonham, this town of Bonham, they were having high suicide rates, and they had virtually no resources for any type of community or for their community at all. If so, you'd have to drive 35-40 minutes to the next available place, because in rural communities, it's just those partnerships and those resources are non-existent. And so through my work at Serve Denton, we got to work with the city of Plano, which I think has been very impactful. It was essentially, we were a contractor and a consultant for them, where we did a feasibility study where we determined, hey, are you able to have a nonprofit center, or what we consider to be a community-based center, in your community where nonprofits can come together, they can have a shared space, and on top of that, can the clients come and have a one-stop shop for them to receive services from a central location? And so that was a very important, I think, moment for cities, because I think they now realize that nonprofits are very serious in the services that they're offering, and B, governments, instead of just relying on nonprofits to help serve the constituents, they can now rely on them to help them build things even greater than that. So instead of just serving their clients, they're able to build upon their programs and figure out how can we build community and nonprofit capacity, and partnering with our nonprofits versus telling them what to do or just giving them money and them nonprofits not doing anything with the money. You now see a more cohesive partnership between the city and the nonprofits. And so I think that's a great point. And I think cities could really learn from their nonprofit partners that they have and figure out how they can collaborate better for their community.
Well said, Allison.
I know, that was really good. I will say that track has over 17 government grants. So we work with the federal government, we work with the state governments, we work with local counties, we work with cities. I think probably at this juncture right now, the city of Dallas and Dallas County conversation is kind of the most interesting, and it's really wrapped around the entire COC for Dallas, just as we are looking at what funding is coming down from the federal government. We are essentially going to have to shift our entire focus and our entire strategy that we've been using for the last 5 years. And I think that the city of Dallas honestly has been steering us towards this for a couple of years. And the nonprofits have honestly held out on it until now the federal government is telling us we have to. And so I think it's just been interesting to see how the city of Dallas needs us. They need us to do a service to make their constituents happy. And we don't need them as bad, because honestly, we don't need their funding as much as they need us to make exits for housing, for shelters. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy of they really need us, and we like their funding, but we don't need it enough that we're going to completely change our strategy. And so I that's a very long-winded answer to say that, especially with city of Dallas right now, everything is changing, and it is a partnership, but it is a sometimes spirited conversation partnership of how are we going and where are we going to get there, especially whenever you add council members to the conversation. We don't get to play politics. We work with whoever gets elected. And I think that, that's how we work, is that, we don't get to choose what council members we work with. We have to work with every one of them. And that can be difficult sometimes.
So I had kind of touched, oh, sorry, Nicole. Were you finished?
No, I'm done.
I'm so sorry. I just kind of jumped in. So I had kind of touched on it a little bit briefly about with our changes in our model, and how we do have a partnership with the city of Denton, and we are trying to find how are we going to address homelessness in Denton County. So we don't receive federal or state funding. We do have a grant with the city of Denton, but that's the only city that we do receive funding from. Whenever we did our capital campaign almost 3 years ago, the city did help with the payment for the building. So the building itself is covered by the city, but we as Our Daily Bread operate out of this building. But I had to look it up real quick, but we are part of the Denton County Homelessness Coalition, and I was looking at all of the members, but that does include the city of Denton and city of Louisville and Giving Grace, Salvation Army, Interfaith Ministries. So we're all working together to see how we can address Denton County. And it's just, as Allison and Nicole were saying, it's so important for the cities to look at what the nonprofits are doing, and for the nonprofits to also hear, okay, what is happening in our community and in our city, and what's the city seeing as the stats, and working together to see, okay, how can the nonprofit help the community, especially in our case, in addressing homelessness. Sorry, that was a really short answer, but
Oh no, thank you for answering, honestly. We're grateful for all the answers. And then just as we are in the last 10 minutes, I was curious to see if our audience has any questions that they wanted to ask as well before it just got too late or anything.
Hey, I have a question. David here. My raising hand function isn't working right now. Something that Nicole and Allison said at the very beginning has been haunting me this whole meeting. Just their conversation about how they were getting into local government and were just like horrified by how slow and how slow everything was going. And I'm currently planning on going into local government, and that is like my biggest fear. I'm still gonna go ahead and like put my toes in the water first before signing off on it, because I'm really passionate about the big picture, and I want like I'm really love the comprehensive plan, like the 40-year plan for like the whole community. So I want to try it out. But I don't know. I was just wondering, uh, in your transition into nonprofit work, do you still feel like you're contributing to like a holistic vision for the community that you're working? I know you guys said that you partnered with the city and with other organizations and you networked together. Do you feel like you are all working towards like a singular vision for the thriving of your city community?
Allison, can I answer for both of us since I've worked for both of our organizations? I mean, I worked for MetroCrest Services for 13 years, and it is my heart and soul. And I'm really sad that Allison's working from home today because the building that they're in, I raised that money and I built that building and it's my baby. But I felt like I was putting a Band-Aid on an issue, kind of like they're new my path, like they're trying to fix the root cause of the issue. And I think that I think that as you think about your journey, you may want to look at a backbone organization that works on legislation or statewide change. I think in my current role at TRAC, we do a lot more legislative work than I've ever done before, and we're able to actually make legislative issues and actually make laws made. I mean, like that, to me, that's the biggest difference of a true local organization. Like MetroCrest Services is only serving 4 communities, and that's going to be the change, right? Like that's going to be the change. Whereas TRAC, we serve 19 counties and we serve such a large footprint that we have a lot of influence on legislative issues since we serve such a targeted population. So David, so TRAC has kind of scratched my itch of being able to make a bigger impact, which is ultimately why I left MetroCrest, was because I felt like that I wasn't making a big enough impact. And so being able to have some conversations in Austin and seeing laws like actually get made that you saw the issue and you brought it to a senator and they made the change, you're like, oh snap, okay, I did do something today. Don't get me wrong, it is very important to feed that person that comes in the front door, right? I mean, it is absolutely vital. But then as you think about like, okay, what lasting impact am I going to make? I was wanting something more. And so that's why I ultimately made a change.
Great, thank you for that. Is there anyone else that would like to also ask a question? Well, if not, I do have a very question that I was curious, just on a more broad-based section, just because I'll be shooting it with Dr. Kruger all the time and just speaking about it. But something that he's always trying to shoot at me and see with New Generation. I am curious to hear from all 4 of y'all. What changes would you like to see in the nonprofit landscape for the next decade? Because there has been, at least from what he's been telling me, so much new changes, so many new just innovations, and I'm very curious to hear from y'all about this.
I've got something. So from when I was at Serve Denton to where I'm at MetroCrest now, I would like to see nonprofits significantly improve in the way that they operate and how they maximize their efficiency in serving their clients. I think it's so necessary that, in the classroom, when I was in the MPA program, we talked all the time, and I'm sure you all remember because it's giving me PTSD right now, even talking about it. But the concept of efficiency over effectiveness and how that works. And I believe that nonprofits should be adopting operations that they can really maximize their capacity on. So, for example, at Serve Denton, they worked with Toyota, the Toyota Motor Corporation, on their services. And so you walk in the room, you don't see a speck of dust on the ground, because every single morning as a staff member, I was walking around making sure there wasn't a speck of dust, right? And so there was different operations and different processes and systems. And I think nonprofits should really try to transition towards that space and figure out how we can be operationally excellent. So if I'm running the American Heart Association, I am just as efficient, as effective as PepsiCo, right? And so trying to make that transition, I think, is really important.
And leveraging AI, leveraging technology, leveraging all the things that corporate is doing. Corporates want to be involved to give their money to you. And the best way you can do that is bring their people in and teach you how they do things. Learn from those corporates that have huge research teams that say, here's how we do it. I love that my husband works for a huge company, because I'm always like, what is your HR team doing? Because my part-time HR guy doesn't know what's cutting edge right now, but a huge 500 company does. And learning from those companies is key. So I will absolutely echo what Allison says. And then something that somebody said earlier about pay, I want nonprofits to understand that we should pay competitively. You get quality that you pay for. Just because I want to work for a nonprofit does not mean that I should be receiving services. And still, our frontline employees could qualify for some services, and that is disappointing and disrespectful to our trade. And we need, from CEO down, we need to be paying better, and changing the conversation around nonprofit leadership, that it is okay to pay people because you pay for quality. If you want idiots running nonprofits and not running effective, go for it. But that's going to be a waste of everybody's money.
So thank you for sharing that too. That's very insightful. Would you like to add anything with Friedman and Pat, just as an ender, or?
I would say, I don't know what the stats are, but I know there are nonprofits being created every single day. There are so many people that are like, okay, I see this not happening in my community. I'm gonna do it. I want to make a change. You create a 501c3, you don't know what to do, and then it kind of goes away. And I feel like that's when I think the reason why I stayed in Denton was because I see this community where the nonprofits actually communicate with each other, and they're actually wanting to communicate together to make sure that the city is, and the people in the city are being taken care of. Whenever we are an 18 up only overnight shelter, and we actually had a family come through our doors, anyone can come here and eat, but we won't take families overnight. But our case managers, they know, okay, let's call Salvation Army. Let's call Giving Grace. We're going to figure out where to take you. And we, as a nonprofit, know what other nonprofits can help. We're not going to like try and be like, oh no, we're the best and we're going to only keep our clients and you only have to come to us. No, we want to help you. We're going to let you know all of the resources that are here. And sometimes I feel like in some areas, people don't know all the nonprofit resources, and you go to someone and say, hey, we're going to go and get this. And people just don't know. They're not communicating. So I think that's where nonprofits in an area need to know each other and need to know each other's services to better help the community as a whole and send people over there if they don't have that service.
Great. And is there anything you would like to add, Pat, by any chance?
Yeah, I just posted a video call from on YouTube. It's a TED Talk by a guy named Dan Pallotta. It's a video I show to every leadership Denton class. And Dan does a really good job of laying out the challenge with philanthropy, and echoes a lot of what Nicole just said, that we often have this scarcity mindset as nonprofits, and we really should operate more like, nonprofit work is harder than corporate work. Any corporate leader who's gone to the nonprofit world, often they end up going back because they realize how much harder it is. And so I would encourage you to watch this video and understand that you got to be business-like if you want it to be treated professionally and seriously. And get rid of the scarcity mindset. And there's a great book on scarcity that I would encourage you to read. It's a pretty easy read. But have an abundance mindset, but also act like a professional organization. Don't act like, oh, poor me. And that's why we adopted the Toyota production system. And now I have Fortune 500 corporations coming to learn from us so that they can see, oh, wow, you guys do it. If you guys do it, then anyone can do it. And I was like, yeah. But, it's not easy. It's hard work. Allison will tell you that. But it's doable, and everyone can do it. And, when you start acting like that, people take you seriously.
Well, I just want to say thank y'all for your time, your hour. Thank y'all for honestly the discussion. It was very insightful. Thank y'all for everyone who came in today also. Before I pass it off to our president Spencer again, from the bottom, just want to say thank y'all for your time for the hour.
Happy to.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
Spencer,
I would exactly what Carlos said. Thank you guys for providing all this very interesting discussion and information about what you guys do, because the nonprofit world is, as you know, very varied. There's just thousands of nonprofits that you can go work for, and even in this part of Texas, even there's so many. So I'm glad that we were all able to do this today.
is there any questions that y'all have for us out of curiosity?
No, just if you ever need an internship, come find us.
Perfect.
Yep.
Nicole, you better not snitch on me.